with that, I'll hand it over to my friend Joel. And he can talk a little bit about Krux.
Great. Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. I realize it's the last thing before the coffee break, so I will be loud and animated to try and capture all of your attention. So Keith put together a really cool panel today, and what I like about it is there's kind of three distinct elements about what we're going to talk about right now. And so kind of my role in the marketplace in that very cluttered Lumascape is obviously trying to demystify and destigmatize, I think, a lot of the things that are happening on that slide from a big data perspective. And then, you know, I think the Kantar presentation will talk about more kind of focused high fidelity data, and then we'll talk about the activation piece. So my piece is really about how are we going to define big data, then talk about what a data management platform does in pretty easy to digest concepts. And then I think we'll talk a little bit about privacy in the regulatory environment, just because although I've been sitting in the audience the last couple days, we are in Europe, and we should talk a little bit about data and privacy and regulation because, quite frankly, it is the reality of the world we live in. So first things first, I thought it might help scope and frame what big data is. So Krux in our analytic environment sits on top of 10 petabytes of information. A petabyte is an interesting concept, something we throw around a lot, but I don't think many people truly understand the scale of a petabyte. If a petabyte was an MP3 song, it would be a song that played for 2,000 years straight, as opposed to my Commodore 64, which would have played 3 seconds of an MP3 file, right? So there's never been a more distinct, obvious application of Moore's law than in the amount of data that we're handling at scale. And really the objective for a data management platform as pertains to my role in this panel is we want to capture all of that data from a huge variety of sources, right? The original iterations of a DMP was, let's talk about DMPs as an interim cookie store that then is going to be used to retarget somebody. And now it's become so much more expansive as we think about data. If you're a brand or a publisher, you have exponentially more data often than you actually perceive yourselves to have. So it's not just your site-side traffic, but it's all your app engagement, it's smart TV, it's over-the-top devices, it's partner data. Do you have partners within your ecosystem? If you're a brand, do you have peer-to-peer relationships with certain publishers? And then, more importantly, it's your paid media, too. So what you can do is capture all of that information, so that way when you go to make business decisions about how to grow your business, you're contemplating all the various ways the consumer actually engages with you. And then it's really Krux's role to capture it all and normalize it and put it into a usable, unique architecture, so that way you can query it, and it really democratizes the application of both engineering and hard data science. But the objective here is to make sure that it's actually translatable to various execution systems. And again, the original iterations of DMP were all about, well, how do I actually plug this into my retargeting solution? Now it's, well, all right, I'm a brand, but I'm also kind of a media company. I need to be able to communicate data into my DSP, into my SSP, into my buy-side ad server, my sell-side ad server. Great, this is all consumer experience orientation. But then it kind of continues to move along and move forward from that point, which is, all right, well, how do I use it to execute and leverage search? How do I use this data to execute and leverage social? How do I combine it with email and make email a part of my kind of media spend, which heretofore has just not been a contemplation? So the role of Krux is these three elements, right? It's the capture of the information, it's the codification of that information, and then it's the, thank you, and then it's the ability to actually send it out into these various systems with as little friction as humanly possible to make sure you're getting as much as you can from that application. So from that perspective, I just wanted to touch on one more thing, which is data privacy and regulation. So one of my concerns, I'm the GM of Krux's EMEA business, and so I talk privacy and data every day. There's a lot of ways that we can address the privacy conundrum by kind of operating within the sphere of influence in our individual markets. And so, I'm an IAB policy member, a board member. We have EDAA certification through the ePrivacy Council. We have BVDW membership, the German equivalent of such a thing. So really the last thing I wanted to talk about was the fear and uncertainty and doubt that exists in Europe in particular around data, privacy, and regulation is not insurmountable, right? And Warren Buffett, for those of us in the room, Warren Buffett has this great line, right? In times of fear, be greedy, and in times of greed, be fearful. Well, there's opportunity for us all in this room if we're willing to kind of lock horns and understand what the regulations actually say and be able to kind of manipulate and operate within these environments, but actually be successful in the acquisition and retention of existing customers, but also in the kind of the general growth of our businesses as pertains to kind of overarching consumer experience. So that's going to be it from my intro.
Okay, great. So